March 2026, the whole thing is coming down. Rahu is going to unmask the elites. We have right now in Vedic astrology, not Western, Vedic astrology, the sidereal zodiac, which is 24 degrees different from Western. It's accurate. Western astrology is off by 24 degrees. In sidereal zodiac, we have the north node of the moon in the house of Aquarius and the south node of the moon in the house of Leo. And these two, the north node and the south node of the moon, are working to completely destroy the power of the elites as well as unmask them. So today we're going to be talking about Rahu and how Rahu is working to unmask the elites. And one of the biggest things that's happening is we have the planet Mars, which is going conjunct with Rahu, which means that they're going to expand each other's power, and it's going to be huge. So I'm going to go ahead and just get into it because there's a lot of stuff that we want to talk about here. So Rahu in Aquarius, March 1st through the 31st. Mars Rahu conjunction is at the peak of what's called Angaraka Yoga, which occurs at 1410 degrees of Aquarius in Shatabisha Nakshatra. This is going to happen on March 14th, 2026. Okay, so what's important about that is that we've just had two eclipses. We've had a solar and a lunar eclipse. And so what's going to happen is as Rahu and Mars goes over the exact degree that the eclipses occurred, this is when you get the impact of the eclipses. So that is going to happen on the 14th. We're going to have the Mars and Rahu is going to come together. I don't know exactly when Mars goes over the exact degree of the eclipse, but it's all happening around this time. Huge explosive things are happening. Literally explosive things are happening. So we want to talk about exactly what's going to happen with this. So at this exact degree, 14 degrees, both Mars and Rahu are in a Vargotama position. They're occupying the same sign in both the main chart and the D9 chart. That may not sound like a big deal to you, but there are two main charts in Vedic astrology, and one is called the birth chart, which they refer to as the D1. And then there's the D9 chart, which represents the ninth division of it, which is connected to the ninth house. The ninth house is spirituality. And so this shows the true nature of anything, right? So when you have, here's the D9 chart, here's the D1 chart. When you have going through like a pole through both of them, you have planets in the same sign. That is huge. It means that this is an extremely powerful, unshakable force within the chart. So that's what we're talking about here. So it means that Mars and Rahu are occupying the same sign in both the main chart and the D9 chart. This significantly amplifies the power and durability of the events triggered on this day. So why 14 Shatabisha is that significant? Why 14 degrees in Shatabisha? So in Vedic astrology, the degrees between 13 and 20 and 1640 of Aquarius fall into the second pada of Shatabisha, which is governed by Saturn in the Navamsha. The ninth chart underneath. Saturn represents karma. So this means there's going to be a huge karmic backlash to this conjunction. So the karmic hammer, because Saturn is the ultimate judge and the ruler of Aquarius, the conjunction hitting 14 degrees means that the destruction or unmasking is not just chaotic. It is a legal and structural enforcement. So just before I started to make this video, I was just happened to be scrolling through stuff on YouTube. And what I saw was that the Justice Department, just now today, March 5th in the afternoon, released a bunch more Epstein files that had been redacted, and they were unredacted. And in those files, you are going to find out some hugely impactful stuff, which is that women who claim to have been victims of all of the PDF file stuff that was going on in the trafficking in the Epstein files, they, or at least one of them, is going to give her unsubstantiated accusations against both Donald Trump and Epstein together. And this is somebody who I believe has already come forward before Trump was elected the first time, and for whatever reason, she got frightened and she withdrew her accusation. She was going to go to court and she took it out. And from what I understand, she felt frightened. You can come to whatever conclusions you want about that. I'm not making any conclusions about it. But this is huge. So, all I can say without saying anything accusatory, it sure does look suspicious that this war happens in Iran just before this comes out. I find that it looks suspicious. It looks like a very convenient timing. I don't have any proof, and I'm not making any accusations. That's just my response as I look at it. So now we're going to have to take a look at planetary war. And on the same day, in March 14th, a secondary war begins between Mars and a retrograde Mercury at 15 degrees Aquarius. This suggests that the unmasking of elites will be tied to a massive failure of communication systems, high-level leaks, or a total breakdown in diplomatic negotiations. So one of the things that I definitely am seeing is that, the elites running the show behind the scenes, they are not a unified group of people. They're narcissists. They're psychopaths. They are completely self-oriented. They make these marriages of convenience because, you don't get into that club. Listen, if somebody becomes a billionaire, my guess is that the only way they get into that club is if you're allowed to get into that club. And then once you get into that club, you learn the rules. And the rules are, this is how we work together and we all benefit from it. So that doesn't mean that they are a team. They're complete narcissist individualists, and it's a marriage of convenience, but they fight with each other. And I could give some examples like, anyway, I'm not going to get into it because I like my channel to stay on YouTube, but they're fighting with each other. Now, since they're losing power, what I've talked about before is a lot of them, like for instance, it's very obvious to me that the royal family is getting pushed under the bus. There are people more powerful than the British royal family. And, the people who provide them with money and resources are more powerful than they are. And those people don't want to have their power destroyed, and they don't want the spotlight on them. So they're happy to push, Prince, whatever his name is, in front of the bus. They're happy to push Fergie and, light a little bit of a fire underneath the king's butt. And people in power, presidents. We're already seeing it in terms of other prime ministers around the world. They're resigning, they're getting pushed out. We've even got people like Bill Gates who has to go on and make an apology to his people. So these are the front line people, and they're going to get pushed under the bus. And so what you're going to see is we will see, as one person gets pushed under the bus, you get to see behind the lines for a brief moment, and you see that they're fighting with each other, and there's this fight for power and who's going to go down first. And so this is what I'm talking about here. This is what Rahu and Aquarius is going to bring to light. Okay, so what to watch for on March 14th through March 21st? Sudden resignations, high-level figures leaving, effective immediately. More UFO alien disclosure activity. So Rahu represents that. Rahu represents UFOs and UFO phenomena. Ketu represents the beings, the light beings. So to me, Rahu and Ketu are both representative of the higher dimensional extraterrestrial phenomenon. So what's coming out now in the disclosure, tricklings that are coming out is now we're hearing what I've been saying for 4 years is that extraterrestrials are interdimensional. They're not third dimensional beings from third dimensional planets. Even though, people like Whitley Strieber and movies want to tell you that's what they are. They're not. They are higher dimensional beings. And so Rahu represents when you look up in the sky and you see an actual UFO or a fake UFO, a human-made UFO. When you look up in the sky and you see one of those, that's Rahu. That's Rahu in terms of the UFO phenomenon. The beings that are controlling those interdimensional craft, that's Ketu. Ketu represents the Pitris, the ancestors, the beings from higher dimensions. So what we're going to be hearing now is the Rahu side of it. And so there's going to be talks about UFOs and crafts and beings and all of that. And there's going to be conflation with the fake alien abductions and all that. I suspect we're going to hear more of that later this month. And given Mars' influence, there's going to probably be more precision military strikes. And according to some sources, this is the highest risk day for a physical escalation in the conflict. So we'll see about that. But you get it. Generally speaking, more conflict, more explosions, more technology. Aquarius represents technology like the internet. Rahu specifically represents the internet, represents technological advancement, going beyond the rules, breaking the rules, going beyond your understanding. So your understanding of reality and what works is going to be blown wide open. In fact, the biggest thing about this awakening is going to be the level of technological advancement that has happened over the past 100 years. And the level of technology, high-level technology that humans already have in these unacknowledged programs. When this comes out, it's going to blow people's minds that we've had the ability, zero-point technology, to have anti-grav, everybody having their own Jetsons anti-grav car, being able to power entire cities with something the size of a matchbox that only takes energy directly out of its immediate environment with zero impact and with zero pollution. The fact that we don't need gasoline or natural gas or coal or electric plants, that will, the economy will collapse because that's what's holding the economy up. In case you didn't know, one of the main reasons why this war is going on all over the world is about trying to keep the United States petrodollar, the dollar, the currency for buying and selling oil. This is what runs the world. Whoever owns that is going to run the world. So this is one of the reasons why we're attacking, or not we are, but the United States government, without the approval of the population and without the approval of Congress, has launched a war. And it sure looks like they're fighting on behalf of the elites in order to secure the petrodollar, among other things. But if you remember, watch the video I made about the movie idea, because it's not about that. It's also about, in many people's minds, in many many military experts' opinions. They believe that part of this is to destabilize the United States military and the economy, because that creates a bigger crisis that allows a globalist machine to take over everything. So I talk about that in the video, in the movie idea video. All right, so that is the biggest thing I wanted to talk about, which is the Mars-Rahu conjunction. There's a bunch of other stuff going on. All right, so let's take a look at March 1st through March 20th. This is the Panchagrahi pressure, which is a 5-planet cluster in Aquarius. And this is going to be there for the first half of this month. The Sun, Mars, Mercury retrograde, which means difficulty with communications. Venus and Rahu are all crammed into one sign, creating an intense pressure cooker. And the effect on the global systems and the elite power structure is going to be huge. March 3rd, this is the trigger. We already got through this. This was the total lunar eclipse. And this is in the sign of Leo, which has to do with leadership. Again, we're going to see that really come to head when the planets go over that exact degree, and when Rahu and Mars conjunct, we're going to feel the full impact of that lunar eclipse. By the way, I just heard this. I was listening to another Vedic astrologer who said something that was absolutely accurate for me. So the interesting thing, on the night of the second, which was, the night just as we were getting ready to have this eclipse, out of nowhere, I found myself remembering something that happened in high school. I believe I was 14 years old. I think I was a freshman. I was a freshman in high school, and what had happened was I remembered something that I had done to somebody else. I had bullied another kid, and it was something that I've never forgotten, and it was crammed way back into my memory, and I hadn't thought about in years. But what had happened was that I had seen on some television show or something, there was like the edge of a table, and there was like a food, a tray of food on it, and somebody tapped it like that on the outside, and it flipped up, and a bunch of food went in somebody's face. And being in the wrong state of mind, being a freshman, and being somebody who was constantly bullied and abused, I could be a bully back then. And so, without thinking about it, not knowing what was going to happen, I went and I did that to the geeky kid in school, and the thing just popped in his face, and I was like shocked, because it was much worse than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be a little bit of thing was going to get on his chest, but the whole thing just went up in this hole, and he was just like dripping with stuff. And some guy came up to me and was ready to pick a fight with me, and he was yelling at me, and he was right, and he was telling me, what the hell is wrong with you? Who do you think you are? How can you do that? How would you like it if I did that to you? Let's fight. Do you want to fight? And I could have beat this guy up, but he was right. And so I just sat there and I took it, and I let him just completely verbally destroy me and yell at me, and he was absolutely right, and I felt it in that moment, and I never got over that. But I, of course, had forgotten about it, because it was, almost like 50 years ago or something. And but on the second, I felt it, and I felt so horrible. And I felt like it was the worst thing I had ever done. And I felt like I deserved to be punished forever. If there was a hell, I would have put myself into it, because I felt so bad for how that kid must have felt. He must have felt awful. I don't know. I can only imagine that it made him feel really horrible. And I felt so bad about that I had done that and what I heard this Vedic astrologer say was that what's going to happen with this lunar eclipse is that it's going to bring out your deepest regrets. And that's the thing that's interesting, because there's a lot of things I would say that I regret. But the truth is, if there was I know now if there was one thing that I could change in my life, it would have been that moment. I guess if that's the worst thing I've done, I must be doing okay, because if that's the worst thing, that happens, that's happened to me a bunch of times. It happens to every kid, I guess. But I felt so horrible about it. But this was the moon eclipse in Leo is going to bring out your deepest regrets, according to this guy. He was right. All right, so that was March 3rd, the trigger event. And then the impact is this acts as the spiritual ignition point in Vedic astrology. An eclipse in Leo is a direct omen for the downfall of high-profile leaders because it occurs on the day of Holi, a festival of burning away negativity. It signals a massive karmic fire that begins to consume the old corrupt structures. So what this means, what I take this to mean, is that this blood moon is going to bring out the deepest secrets and the deepest regrets. I mean, if you see, it's all over YouTube. Hillary Clinton and President Clinton being asked about incredibly embarrassing things. Now, they haven't gotten in any trouble for it yet, but I can't imagine that Clinton is an old man. He's shaking. He's so old. I can't imagine this is what he was expecting for his legacy to be known for being associated with Epstein and with being associated with these women who are not of an age appropriate for the kinds of photos that he finds himself in with them. This is not something that he wanted to talk about. The last thing that Hillary Clinton was to be asked questions about, how do you feel about pictures of your husband with these young women? So that's happened right after the 3rd. All of the things you regret the most is going to come up. So put in the channel, put in the comments if you experienced it. You don't have to share your deepest secrets. Mine was very embarrassing. I've forgiven myself for it and moved past it. And again, if that's the worst thing in my mind that comes out, then I'm doing pretty good on the whole. Most people end up doing things a lot worse than that. All right, let's keep going. So Rahu in Aquarius, March 8th. This is the combust Saturn begins. The event is Saturn moves too close to the sun in Pisces and becomes combust. So this is going to be actually good for people who have worked through their karma. This is going to be bad for people who have not. It means that their karma is going to, it's like popping a zit. It's just going to it's going to be quite horrible. So when the planet of justice and structure loses its strength, it often feels that they can act with impunity, leading to significant judicial or political overreach. However, because Rahu is watching, this overreach usually leads to an immediate public unmasking. So again, what we're talking about is the elites are out of control. And again, they're not even trying to hide. I'm telling you what I've seen on YouTube reports. That with photos, there are people who are claiming that the United States military bombed Iranian schoolgirls. A girls' school was bombed, and many of them were killed. Little girls. I mean, that's not something that you can. There's no justification for that. You can't talk about some righteous war and say that you did that, even by accident. And they're not even mentioning it, and they're not trying to hide it, which means that if that is true, then what it shows is it shows a military force that has no real objective, and that the people behind it have zero compassion, or full-on hardcore psychopaths. And they're not even trying to hide it, which means that they are overreaching, and it means that they're panicking. This is what happens when an animal is cornered. It's the most dangerous, but it will it will do absolutely anything and everything in order to achieve what it feels it needs to in order to be safe again. So it means that they're incredibly unsafe if they're doing these kinds of things. And again, people want to get on my case about stuff, but I have said very clearly that the elites are coming down. They are losing their power. They are being shown for who they are, and they are also very dangerous because they are so threatened right now. Their very existence is on the line, which makes them incredibly dangerous. So keep your eyes open. All right. Yes, and the impact, let's see here. Moving forward, March 13th, 14th, this is Angaraka Yoga. This is what we already talked about, the Mars-Rahu conjunction. This is the most dangerous and transformative window of the year. Angaraka energy, Angaraka is the what's that word? The Vedic language, the Sanskrit word for anger. Anger, Angaraka. Anger and Angaraka means smoldering, just like the fire back there. Underneath that, there's smoldering coals. That's Angaraka. That is the name of Mars. Mars is Angaraka. It smolders. So this is like resentment. There's like the burst of flame, which is anger, and then the flame goes out. But then there's the smoldering resentment that goes on and can restart fires all the time. So this is Angaraka Yoga. So the unmasking is literally the removal of the mask. Date. Expect a major elite figure, a financial institution, or a secret geopolitical alliance to be exposed or dismantled, perhaps overnight. All right, let's keep going. So March 16th through the 21st, this is Raj Panchak. And this is what I'm calling the governance audit. The event, a Raj Panchak period begins. Raj refers to royalty or government. During these 5 days, which is Panchak, which is 5 days. During these 5 days, events related to the throne or central governments are amplified. If a downfall began during the March 14th peak, the Raj Panchak ensures the consequences are finalized and made public. March 20th through the 21st, this is the pivot. Mercury stations direct. So Mercury comes out of retrograde and stations direct. The event, Mercury ends its retrograde motion in Aquarius, Pisces. The impact is the fog of war begins to lift. The information that was leaked or distorted during the first 3 weeks of March is now verified. This is the stage of ascension where the collective begins to see the new earth path clearly because the old lies are no longer functional. So this is huge right now. And so we'll see. It seems to mean to me, if things go well, let's see, am I getting a download right now? If things go well according to what we want, this is possibly the worst period. Fingers crossed. Let's hope that this is the worst period. But the feeling that I've had, the information that I've had from multiple sources, including Vedic astrology, is that what we're experiencing right now is the end of the world that the elites wanted to create. And in their mind, they are creating a world-ending event, a biblical Armageddon event where then they get to come in like Jesus and take over the world, and then there's going to be the fake alien invasion, which will then cement everything and bring people into controlled little cities and all of that. This is the plan. They are now in the final stages of that. So the first of the final stage is to create this world war situation. And then after that, things will be so weakened, ideally in their mind, people will be so frightened and so weak that they'll want to go into some digital ID thing with, the small controlled cities and be willing to go into some hyperdome and all of that, and then they can fulfill their psychopathic desires of pretending that we're being invaded by aliens, when in reality they can just use their weapons to wipe out whole populations and then have that small controllable population. This is the beginning of that. And you see this because I've been alive 62 years. I've watched all of the wars now that I can see in hindsight were all completely unnecessary. But I've never seen them go to war without really working hard to create some kind of consensus, even if it wasn't complete. There was always a big chunk of people that were behind it. And they would rally for months and months to get it, to do this. Even after 9/11, they didn't go right into the Iraq war. It took a long time to get the consensus and the thumbs up, and then they went to war. And this one, they didn't do that. In fact, they're refusing to call it a war because, that it would be illegal. But of course, you look at it, there's no difference. There's zero difference. And it was, from my perspective, completely unprovoked. So they're not even trying to hide anymore. They're doing it, and they might throw a little bit of, some kind of fake, news stuff to make you think, try and get you off the track or make you think that it was justified, when in reality, we all know they're not even really trying that hard. So that tells you, number one, that they're losing power, and number two, that they're desperate, and that this is the Hail Mary pass. And I am hoping that what's going to happen is that it's going to not work. It's going to fail. And part of that will be because of human beings not buying into it, not playing into it, being too smart. And at the same time, we're going to see the shift. And I believe it's possible there might be some kind of external space event that will at the very least be a sign in the sky that people will interpret as being a spiritual moment, or very well could be an actual energetic catalyst to shift people out of where we've been. So there it is. I babbled a long time. I hope that makes sense to you. If you want an astrological reading for yourself, you can put it in the comments. How do I get an astrology reading? We've got all of these here. Check out all of the links, guys. People ask me, how can I get it? And they haven't even bothered to check the links. So there's 4 links here. There's contact.thunderwizard.com. There's channel.thunderwizard.com. And then there's thunderwizard.com. And in Thunderwizard there, I want you to click on memberships on the menu and on shop on the menu. So really there's 5 links in here. Pay attention, check them out. And if you have any questions, put it in the comments section. I read all of the interesting and the respectful comments. With that, my friends, I love you all. Please be very good to yourselves. I will see you all very soon.